Welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. This is the podcast that features me, Jana Stern, psychic activator, energy healer, and astrologer, as I delve into deep conversations with different folks in the holistic and conscious industries about the many beliefs and practices of spirituality, mental health, and what it means to be a human who's into that stuff in the 2020s and beyond. I'm Really Into That Stuff is excited to tell you that we have won one of the top 10 Esoterica podcast spots on feedspot.com. Check out the whole list at blog.feedspot.com/esoterica_podcasts for the whole list. Thanks to our friends at FeedSpot for this incredible honor. Welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. I am joined by the most inspirational, sweetest, and kindest Andrea DiPaolo. I'm so excited that you're here. You are the founder of Quartz and Canary. You're a jewelry designer, custom. You're a retreat connoisseur and an intuitive. You're a million amazing, amazing things. Give everybody a little bit more of an intro of who you are and how you got into all that stuff.
Well, thank you, Miss Jana, for the intro. You know, I love you so very much, as you are such an inspirational and motivational and very significant force in the lives of many. So thank you for being one in mine. Oh, I feel like you hit a lot of points, but if I could describe myself to people, is that my communication is my golden pearl. My ability to share, channel messages, stories, explain anecdotal things to people, and also be able to give everybody a very easy way into the jewelry world too. Because I know jewelry, especially custom or fine jewelry in general, especially when you're also in the lane of crystal healing or gemstone and creating things that bring people in clothes cognition, which is like they feel better, or they do better, they think better when they're wearing it. It takes a lot of communication. So I feel like it's my golden nugget. And that's exactly what I use it for whenever I can.
Yeah, you're being really, really, really modest with your gifts. You are one of, I would say 3 people off the top of my head that are like stupid psychic, psychic to the point that I'm like, oh, if this one says that I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to. And I know that you kind of work all of that into your world. Tell me a little bit about how your journey into crystals and all that good stuff kind of began, because you sell crystals and you make jewelry. And I know you're also like deep in the science of crystals too. Like you're not intuitive, you're also brilliant. So talk a little bit about how you kind of started in that journey and then how you got to here.
Well, I started in the jewelry business when I was 18 years old. It was a fascination with sparkly things. And because I have this, I'm like, squirrel, every time there's something around that, brightens my pupils and makes them expand, I just fell in love with it. Totally fell in love with it. And I was 18 at the time, and it pretty much took me on my journey, and it kind of met the spiritual space that I was in at that time. I was about 25 when that started, where I was really doing much deeper work. And that's when I was really learning how to meditate, really learning how to journal, channel, understand even my gifts. At that point, I was not just living in the world of, oh, I just saw that and that is real. How did I know that? It wasn't that anymore. So at the time, I had a really wonderful coach who was explaining to me, I think you should really connect these two and merge those worlds. And I certainly did. Quartz and Canary was not born from spiritual roots. It was actually born from being in the bridal industry, because I had people constantly calling me to make and create things. And just slowly but surely, it all came together. And my intuition really kicked in very, very loudly. I would say I was probably 27 or 28, and it kicked in.
Saturn return. Let's go.
I'm in another one now for sure. But I feel like that's when it all clicked in and connected. And then from that point there, I just really ran with it and wanted to see where the company evolved. And through the pandemic and losing that job that I had originally had in the hospitality world, which is the retreat connoisseur space, right? Because I had been in hotels for a really long time. I started becoming more and more well-known for my intuition, more and more well-known for my motivational talks and helping people through difficult or darker spaces. And then from there, she just keeps growing and evolving. And now it's like the undertones of the company are intentional, spiritual, sustainable, but the trajectory is whatever and however people want to see their pieces being made and whatever's most significant to them.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how your scientific understanding of crystals and gems. I know you don't even like to call them crystals. You're like, I work with gems. Thanks so much. Even though I'm like, don't call them rocks. You can call them stones or crystals. Call them rocks. You need to leave my house. Uh, the rocks. These are rocks. Everything else, crystals. Thanks so much. But I call them gems. Talk to me a little bit about how your scientific understanding of them, because you know a lot of the physics and the metaphysics of it all. That kind of interweaves with the intuitive bit and what all of that like enmeshing looks like.
Right. So everything in life is a kinetic wave, right? And we are kinetic waves in and of ourselves. We are a oscillating being that is constantly in a mode of giving and receiving. So our frequency emits and it attracts, right? It is very scientific in the sense where this is something that they've been measuring for a very long time. Gemstones have the same type of movement in the fact that they produce bioscalar waves. So when you come in contact with, a gemstone of any kind, you essentially allow yourself to kind of connect with that bioscalar wave from the stone, and in turn it goes into you. The other piece that I would say that's really important is there is a lot of speculation with crystalline or crystalline structures, however you want to say it. And it's not even really speculation as much as like the genius behind IBM, Marcel Vogel, gave us the gift of the LCD, the liquid crystal display, because it retains a frequency and an energy for so long that we can stare at each other through the screen. And quartz is the byproduct of said crystalline display. Because it's neither liquid nor solid, and very much so has such a notable frequency, it can actually be deemed to be a living being. So just like we exchange energy and you can feel a hug and a sense of love, or you can hear the Jaws music when somebody's coming and you're like, oh, they're carrying some stuff. It's the same thing with the crystal structure because they are indeed living. Nikola Tesla even discussed that. And when Marcel Vogel was coming up with the Vogel cut, which is a very rare cut, and if you have one and it was less than $500, it's not a Vogel cut, unfortunately. But the cut in and of itself was really meant to transmute. And that is how he really adapted crystal energy into his core science, and why so many people have been studying the reactionary process, right? I'm also a really firm believer of like, it's not that complicated. Mother Nature produces very interesting and magnetic and medicinal forces, and we have everything that we need in the earth and around us. And I by no means think that excessive mining is right. I by no means think that unethical mining is right. But I do believe that Mother Nature provided these with a purpose. And not only do they move the hands of time, they're in medical equipment. Literally, yeah, they are in our very abundant and present technology, but they are something that has been used for thousands of years to protect, to redirect, to select, to attract, to detract things. And it ain't new. We're kind of late to the game. So that's like my mini science talk on gemstones. I nerded out there for a second. Thank you.
Thanks for nerding out with me. My crystal nerdiness is just like getting all feels. Yeah, I love that. As you were speaking about nature's abundance, I was thinking about, been having this conversation a lot with people about how we manifest our reality constantly, and animals show themselves to us. It's like nature being like, everything is completely made up. Please pay attention to the things around you. And I love what you're sharing about crystals, like also being a part of that, because I agree with you. I think that we find the stones that we need when we need them for the reasons that we need them. I'm curious how, when you're designing pieces, particularly custom pieces, like I know that you've got kind of like a couple different sides to QC, which I'd love for you to chat about. But tell me a little bit about that. And also when you're custom designing, how does that all work in?
Custom design is really interesting because either I get two things. Either I get somebody who's extremely particular and is like, this is the way it's got to look, which is totally fine. And then I kind of roll with the motif, or they give me full creative control and I just see something in my mind that I feel like I know they need or would be an energetic representation of that. And what I do is I aim to create something that would be best suited for that person's physical body, because it is also that person's avatar, how they're structured, how they're carried, how their body is framed, right? How their hand looks, how their wrist looks, how their neck looks, how their ears look, if they like a heavier earring, if they don't. So I have to observe the physical being first. And then second to that observation is finding how I can put whatever's in my head on paper. And then the crystal really typically kind of merges. And I've been so lucky that so many people have been gracious enough to say, I just love what you've done. So I want something similar. Just throw a heart in it or throw this stone in it and run with it, girl. And I usually observe, obviously, all of the meanings and try to understand more what each stone is doing. And if there's going to be anything that kind of creates interference, right? And then from there, I just create. And I also try to seek things that are really ethically sourced, because there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the gemstone world. You know, there's a lot of knowledge that you have to be aware of in order to responsibly create. It's a very delicate space, the jewelry world. And being a jeweler for over 15 years now, I feel like I know pretty much every process, every ethic, every background to creating that. So that's also a big part of my process too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know that, there are lots of different mines that are really unethical and people literally dying for the diamond on your finger, call them blood diamonds. And that happens for other stones as well. I mean, even sometimes, the chunk of quartz that came at some gem show, you don't know where it came from and who is sourcing it. And a lot of the times I can feel it. Like I've certainly walked into places or met people with booths of things and I'm like, not going near. But not everybody has that capacity. So whenever I meet people who source so ethically, and I'm lucky to know a couple different, gem and also crystal wholesalers and retailers who are very, very focused on that because it's my frequency. But yeah, it's really, really important, I think, to make that part of the practice. Otherwise, whatever you think you're doing, you're not really doing it. And, there are enough people in like different kinds of relationships, marriages, partnerships, whatever, that they buy their wife or husband piece of jewelry and they think this is my token of love. And then it came from some terrible place with some nasty ass energy. And from that day forward, it's something difficult in the partnership. And I'm like, did you try taking off that piece of jewelry? Did you try cleansing?
Yeah, I have stories about that. I mean, it could get really personal, but I have stories about that from like a Vedic astrology perspective. I have the stories about that from the meaning of the stone in and of itself, and really how powerful things are. Okay, so the space of QC is moving out of me being part of the mass-produced collections because I myself really got into that. The fashion world really influenced me to push my creativity, which was a beautiful part of my journey. But it also really made me realize that producing larger quantities was exceptionally outside of my wheelhouse. I like smaller batch. I like one of one. I like rare. I like unique. I like the fact that no two stones are alike. I like the fact that no two pieces are alike. I like the fact that, we were talking about these prior, these are our famous little bar pendants, and I'm wearing mine in natural citrine. But if I were to re-release them, I might only release them in a certain quantity of stones as well. And I appreciate the rarity of that. I appreciate the intentional space that somebody has to be in to say, hey, Andrea selected this. I need this for me, for somebody else, whomever. And we're also moving away from a lot of the plated product. I know that it's price point friendly.
But not really, because then you got to replace it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when we're talking longevity and wear and energy, when we're talking solid gold and alchemy, it's really the metal in and of itself that brings us closer to source energy. It brings us closer to ourselves. It brings us truly closer to what it is that we need to express within us in order to bring that outside of us. So source in, source out. Yeah. And I feel like silver is also great, but again, in its solid format. I wear like our solid fire bangle in the solid sterling silver. It's one of my favorites. Obviously, you could tell that I'm kind of obsessed with just citrine.
She's girl's trying to make all the money. You got it. Make it all the money. I love that piece.
Yeah. And again, this is a one of one, but if a client really said, I like this design, Andrea, it's fine. But we would just insert a stone that would really resonate with them. And we're really moving towards eliminating that kind of middle category, which is the vermeil or the gold plated, because clients have an expectation that it's going to last a long time, but that's not realistic in the jewelry space, whether you're doing the highest form of plating or not. So we are also kind of kicking it back to our roots and really acknowledging that unions and love and marriage are very sacred. And I take that ish very and seriously. I put all of my love and energy and support into supporting others to show that significant counterpart in their life that they love and they want to commit and spend the rest of their life with them. So that really prompted me to move towards the wedding band and engagement ring space, because I am a big ball of watery love, and I love nothing more than seeing people love each other. And for me to be a part of that and to be a legacy jeweler that eventually for years and years to come, my greatest wish is to leave this company to somebody who can carry this legacy on and to be able to support people to create pieces, because I know that my grandmother's earrings are in this ring, and all of the jewelry that I collected from the beginning of my career in this ring. And for me, it's a source of my talent, and it is also a huge representation of the things that I've gone through in my life. So I think that because of its ability to maintain energy, because metal does hold that quite well, it's a very underestimated way to connect.
I agree with you. I think, not that I'm married, but I think that when a person puts a ring on, we forget, the alchemy of what's happening when the metal is skin to skin, like, or on your skin, touching you and holding a frequency of vibration. And, it's why things like taking your rings off are so huge in our culture, because something is agreed upon energetically, and that piece of metal and that maybe stone, depending on what your ring looks like, is interacting with you, right?
Oh, for sure. Don't ever put on a yellow sapphire unless you want the truth. And for female entrepreneurs, wear that stone if you're confident that everything's honest, because if otherwise, she'll come out. It all comes coming out. That's what happens.
You can't help it. It's going to happen.
She sucks everything out of the room. She's like, all right, well, there you go.
It's funny that you say that. I have a Moldavite yellow sapphire ring coming my way that I discovered, and I was like, okay, all right, let's see what happens. Talk to me a little bit about retreats, because I know that you lead lots of them throughout the year. You're often planning for the next and the next and the next and the next. And I know that you're the alchemy, the intention, the integrity with which you create your pieces. I feel like they almost, pardon the pun, link directly into your retreat business.
Yeah, and that's a very intuitive message. So thank you for that. I'll take that one from my back pocket. But they do, because a lot of people on the retreats as well, when they come and we do a pop up with the jewelry, they have a tendency to source a piece that's really connected to that spiritual journey that they've gone throughout that course of time. The retreats that I put on are a lot about the re's. So like renew, restore, revitalize, redirect. Everything is about redoing something, because when we retreat, we are taking a step back. So I keep my energy focused on what re-theme this retreat needs. This year I've run the renewal, we're running the restore. We're thinking about the next one being in Arizona to reconnect, very much portal energy, right?
Arizona sounds lovely.
I know, right? I was just on the phone with properties the other day, and I was like, oh, wow, we might have to go there. And the reconnect retreat that we're thinking about bringing to Arizona is something that, I can honestly say is a big part of why I love the hospitality industry and why I think retreats is an amalgamation of everything that I have done in my life and what I do. It's my 10 years in business development and hospitality and learning how to house and host and love people when they're in your home. Because in hotels, we call it back of house, front of house. We don't call it back a hotel, front of hotel. That's what we say. And certainly it's a great space for the pieces to be really connected to people and for them to get a really magical take home and something that they could physically wear and represents that journey. And obviously the retreat, we directly tailor it to that theme and what it needs to bring people in that moment and what we're aiming to create in terms of service. So after working for every major brand pretty much in North America, I feel like I've accumulated the best pieces of each. And I'm like, wow, I think this is the big part of what I'm supposed to be doing, you know? And I love doing them. They are very energetically powerful, especially even for me too. It takes a lot out of my physical being.
But it also gives a lot to your physical being in the integration.
Yeah, 100%. It's not a task for the faint-hearted for sure, because you're dealing with a lot of energies upon check-in, and you kind of have to, it's literally like going through security, if I can imagine it. They're walking through security into one country and then they kind of leave totally different. So, you know, within the first 24 hours, my goal is just to decompress whatever energy that I've picked up and be able to get myself going for the following day to reformulate myself in the best possible way so I can serve them fully for the rest of the weekend, or, you know, whether it's 3 or 4 days that I'm doing. There's a lot that goes into them for sure. But I think one of my favorite parts is seeing the massive transformation with people and seeing them take on things in life that they would have never done if they hadn't gone to that retreat. I also see the sense of community that it fosters, right? I think that's vastly important to everyone's journey, is finding like-minded people along the way.
That to me is the most important part of my whole journey. I've gone through a lot of transformations in my lifetime, and the people that magnetize to me in those moments of transformation, or through those moments of transformation, those people, they've elevated me to the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. I mean, you're a huge example of one of those people. You know, you came into my life at a time where I was really, really stepping fully into my power. And, you know, our friendship has evolved in this really beautiful way for me over time, just as a confirmation that, yep, I'm doing what I'm meant to do in all the ways that I'm meant to do it. And I know that when I'm in community that gets it, there's always this clear understanding. It's like a meeting of the mind. We did this life thing. I know you. And those kinds of relationships, those kinds of connections, they're lifesavers in a world where it feels that everybody is so performative and ignoring their intuitions and trying to be something that they don't know how to be, and, you know, fake it until you make it. But like, you and I are not fakers. I'd rather fall apart and be messy and ugly and take 1,000 steps backwards than plow on forward into something that feels performative. And so, like, I love that you're offering that space for people in retreats to find them, their true selves, and then really, really be that.
Yeah, that integration does take time. I think authenticity is really the highest vibration that is known to the world, well beyond love and well beyond gratitude. And when people feel that from you and you truly decide to live in that space, it changes everything. You don't really need to try anymore. And I think that, you know, life is an illusion, but to so many of us, it's not. Everything going on around us is a massive illusion, masking itself in lessons and in performances and in opportunities and in heartbreaks and in pain and in happiness and in so on and so on and so forth. It's endless. It's an infinite illusion with infinite opportunities. And I think the biggest thing that happens when you're in a like-minded community is that you realize that part of the bliss of the illusion is that you get to create it. And the illusion that you are constantly creating can sometimes get much and much better with meeting those people. Like, I know if we hadn't have met when we did, and I hadn't have had you go through so much with me, I wouldn't have come out the same. You know, I was calling you when you and I weren't even in the physical proximity with each other. And part of my journey was really leaning on like-minded and people who really wanted the best for me, you know? And I think that when you find those people along the way, it is a very interesting space to find a human being who genuinely wants the best for you and is willing not to judge you during that, and also not look at your accolades as a threat and rather a joy and a sign. You know, I think that when people around you are elevating and growing and becoming better versions of themselves, that is always like a little star coming out of that person's chest to say that exists within your environment and within you. And I think that that's the really amazing piece that community brings.
I agree. I think that there are a lot of people who, in their desire to be seen as something, they see it in somebody else and innately it makes them insecure, right? This happens a lot. In particular, I would say I've seen it happen a lot in the healing space. There's a lot of people who are perhaps uncomfortable with their gifts, maybe just coming into it, or maybe they are quite comfortable, but they feel threatened by others for some reason. And when people who are as intuitive or more intuitive, if that's a thing. I don't think it is, but maybe whatever it is, there's like this almost threatened feeling that you can get. And instinctively, when I meet somebody who is living in their power, in their gift by their design, my instinct is lift it up, rise it up, like encourage it, enhance it, do whatever I can to really help them because there are billions of people on this planet, and all of humanity needs to evolve its consciousness, and it sure as shit is not on my shoulders alone. And so I need personally, as a psychic, as a healer, as an intuitive, I need for more people to be intuitive, more people to be healers, more people to like lead retreats and do the things that they do because it can't all be on my shoulders. So the more that I see people who are living in authenticity, like real authenticity, then I'm like, all right, just give them everything, give them whatever you can, encourage them to be themselves and just like really uplift them. And yeah, that's just like, that's kind of my way. And I felt it in you too. You were like, oh, I see you. I'm like, I see you too. Let's go.
100%. I think the best part about any friendship is that you motivate each other to be the best and the worst versions of yourself. And I was having a very raw moment with a group, a friend of mine. They're a couple essentially. The husband and wife, they were sitting out there on the porch and we were having some pretty personal conversations. And I kept telling them some of the emotions that I was recently experiencing. And her husband, without missing a beat, said, sometimes the angry version is the best version of you.
One of the things that I know about you is that and we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, your intuitive gifts they're unmatched in my mind. I think I know maybe one other person who has what you have. But I'd love for you to chat a little bit about kind of how it shows up for you and some of the ways that you help to navigate it in your world because it's invasive as well as helpful.
Yeah, it's hella invasive. Okay, so I'm a medium. I have been a medium for probably as long as I know, cognitively, like in my 20s when I would talk to people about loved ones that have crossed over. And then I would see very significant things. If I'm being quite frank, like in the last few years, I haven't really used that gift as much just because I find sometimes mediumship can be like very draining, especially if the energy doesn't want to come through.
I won't use it since 2020. I don't advertise it. If it happens, good for you, but I'm not talking about it like as if I need to put it out there.
Yeah. It's really draining, especially if somebody is coming with the anticipation of talking to a loved one and they're not ready to come through. It is also very physically taxing on my body. Like the way that the mediumship shows up for me is like, for example, if I had somebody, and this is TMI, but like if I had somebody that passed of colon cancer coming through and I know nothing about this person the night before they're coming, like I would be suffering from somebody who would have the early symptoms of that. And so the next day when they show up, I'll often say, this is what I felt in my body. This is what's going on. Do you have somebody who had, colorectal issues? Da, 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 da. I feel like they passed from the onset of that and then later passed from this organ failing. And their direct response is like, no pun intended, but yes, holy shit, this has happened. And it is physically taxing on my body because I get the symptomology sometimes of the loved one that's on the other side. But I do like to bring it into my awareness whenever I can. And I would like to, I think, utilize it a little bit more, if that makes sense. Because for me, shows up with my loved ones as like I can have very deep conversations with them through signs, symbols, and dreams. My own clairvoyance comes into my dreams almost in real time. I'm showing them in film format. I always tell everybody in my life, and ain't nobody can ever hide from this, that, the other thing. Your loved ones can't hide. Nobody is safe if I'm in your life, because I will figure that shit out way beforehand. The way that they show up for me is in color. They're less and less cryptic as time goes on, and more as my meditation practice increases. They are often giving me what I believe to be as slivers of timelines that exist and that have either passed or yet to pass. I saw COVID happen before it did. I saw it as if it was every business was shut down, everybody was in their homes, no one was in the streets, but I didn't see anybody with a mask. It seemed more of like an economical issue to me, an environmental issue to me. With the way that I received it in the dream, I've seen things about partners that they are deeply trying to mask or hide, and it'll keep coming up over and over again in real time. Like they'll do something, and within a week I'll see it. I want to even say well attuned pineal glands and intuitions don't necessarily see things for themselves. I see things very clearly for myself, which I understand is a great rarity. I also get a lot of knowings. When the knowing and the clairvoyance, the vision comes to me, I know without a doubt that that is an occurrence that is happening or is yet to happen. Clear audience, I get, but I don't really get it as powerful as perhaps other people who hear things. Where my clear audience comes in is what I call as auditory hallucinations. Like I'll hear a song that's relevant and I won't necessarily know where it's coming from, but I know that the song is downloading into my brain, and it's a song that may be from the early 90s that I haven't heard in 20 years.
Lyric is resonating, something is bringing you something, a nugget of information is stored or renewed for you, and there it is.
Yeah, like when I was breaking up with my fiance at the time, I was hearing, "It's raining man, hallelujah." And I was like, damn girl, okay, not a bad auditory hallucination to have. The clairvoyance piece is, it just comes in when it wants to. Like all of my clairs are turned on, that I get it in the various forms that I need to receive it in. I could be sitting with a client and it could be from, they suffer from sleep paralysis the night before, I'll suffer from it. Then I'll be sitting with them and I'll say, well, you suffer from this. This is what the entity looks like. This is what the feeling is. This is how you go through it. This is what I feel in your body. I feel anxiousness here, this, here, that, there. And it's almost like I can get blips of the way their life works through their energy and also through their experiences in my own, the clairs, whether it's dream or physical, mental, emotional downloads. They are all the way turned on.
They are all the way turned on for you. There's no question. And I know that many of my gifted friends, I have a lot of very, very gifted friends, and many of them, 2 or 3 of those clair senses really, really strengthened. And I know that, for you, you get a little bit of everything. And it always really blows my mind when you have a knowingness or a vision. I'm always like, oh boy, shit. This ain't no stopping us now.
For sure. I mean, it's happened recently to me. And here's an example that I can give to your viewers and listeners. In Cole's notes, I've gone through a very difficult time where I had to make a decision regarding a relationship that was in my life, whether I wanted to stay or I wanted to go. There was a large sense of betrayal and deceit that had been consuming that relationship from the inception of it. And I was only being shown things in dream state. And I also had extreme knowingness and feelings in my body as if a lie or a cloud of said lies was kind of hanging over my head. After the departure of this person in this relationship, there was a moment in time about 2 weeks after they had moved out where I had woken up very agitated, because in a dream I had basically directly seen that this person was toggling between 2 women, and that this person had already been on dating apps, and further to that, either had people kind of like in the background and was pressing the accept button as soon as the coast was clear, or was already on a pretty visceral rampage and a dopamine-based rampage. I'm not judging the humanity of it. I'm just kind of explaining the science of why I think somebody does that. A dopamine rampage to get all those hits. Long story short, I had seen certain things. They all came to fruition. All of them. From friends confirming that they saw him on a dating app, from me seeing extra followers, to me having this visceral knowingness that there was something like abnormal about me being able to see that. And so what I say to you is this, is if you see it in a dream, it is a message. And it is either one of three things. First is prophecy and psychic. Second is taking out the trash. And sometimes it's just releasing the emotional garbage. And third, it's just a general sign. And that general sign could be a connection to your emotional state, to your mental state, to your physical state. And it could be showing you and making you understand, I need to leave this. I need to talk about this. I need to do this. And I would like to just say this piece as well for all of the people who have gone through various relationships that may have been unbecoming of their wellness, is your physical health matters most. If we don't have that, we have no wealth. Nothing. You have no wealth if you do not have health. I don't care how much money you own, you earn, because you own it only for a temporary amount of time, by the way. Everything is an asset and everything is a liability and everything is leased in this lifetime. So if you think you own something, think again, because it's going to be let go. So, and this is coming from a multiple business owner who I have almost $1 million worth of assets at 36 years old. Like, I mean, that in and of itself can tell you that I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to leave it with me. I want to give it to people before I go. So I will say this, your health is paramount. It is paramount to anything and everything that you are experiencing in this lifetime. If you do not have that and you are in constant bouts of cortisol and oxytocin, serotonin and oxytocin, cortisol and et cetera, your body and your physical symptomology will ail. And nothing in this lifetime, not work, not people, not relationships, not love, not friends, not family, not food, is worth fucking yourself up for that. Because when your health goes, it all goes.
You're 100% right. I think that we manifest in our lives everything that's happening for us is happening for our evolution, and that starts with the physical body. And so, I have a friend who was actually telling me that their mother had been sort of unwell for many, many years and turned around and was like, oh, actually, I've been living a lie, and had to sort of come out with what the truth was, and then immediately transformed her whole life, her whole being, and her physical health. We get trapped, as you said earlier, in the illusion. And the more that we let ourselves play in the illusion, our psychic gifts open up. I always say what I do is not special. I'm special, but what I do is not. I just tapped into it and I work on those muscles every day. I lift the hundreds, the 500s, and I teach others to lift the 10s and the 20s or the 50s or the hundreds or the whatevers. But I also know that we're constantly drawing things into us for our evolution in this lifetime. And some of us are here for a more intense experience. And if you're somebody who's been having a very intense experience, thank you, because you're helping everyone and everything as you go through whatever it is that you're going through. And the more that you choose to take those sort of acts of bravery and say, I love this person, and also this intuitive thing that keeps nudging me feels so yucky and makes me feel so unaligned and so unwell, like dis-ease, uncomfortable. I'm going to choose the harder path on the outside, right? It's not easy to say, okay, here's the ring back. No thanks to the marriage. No thanks to the commitment. No thanks to the forever after at any stage of life, or, giving back a ring, getting divorced, separating, whatever, even losing a partner to death, those things, or a parent or a child, God forbid, these things that we experience as people, all of these different traumas, they come up for us, I think, because we relate to death and endings backwards. And the way that you often deliver your messages is something along the lines of, yeah, that it's all an illusion, that it's all a game, and that there's something to be learned and received and evolved in ourselves just by participating, just by like really showing up and looking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, loss is a lesson that is disguised in an opportunity to give something to yourself that thing was giving you. You know, when my aunt passed away, she is and forever will be my best friend and really a soulmate on this earth. She was legit the real deal. My mom had me when they're 10 years apart. When she was 16, I watched her get married when I was 16. You know, we were ride or die for each other. We were kindred spirits and souls through and through. And she still is now. She had my back the entire way through what I was going through. She finessed the good energy and source that exists out there to be like, my niece, not this one, not my niece. And when she passed, the one thing that came to me was the biggest aha moment I've ever received in my life. And that was when you lose something, whether it is a job, an animal, a partner, that loss is disguised as a lesson and an opportunity. And the lesson and opportunity in it is to go beyond the illusion of their passing or the loss or lack of physicality and to understand what they were providing you. And she provided me unconditional love. And I didn't provide myself that. So she is my greatest gift because I provided myself that unconditional love in so many actions and experiences. And also one powerful mofo.
Oh my God, you are one fucking powerful mofo. You are a powerhouse. People often say this to me. They'll be like, oh, you're so strong. You're so powerful. And I'm like, you should meet my friends.
Well, we are all alike, right? So that what exists in me exists in you. And what exists in you exists in me, right? It's all part of it. And, you know, I think that when it comes to your identity and what it is that we identify as, it's all something that we can take into consideration in this lifetime and realize it's so malleable. 8 months ago, I identified as the girl who didn't know if her gifts were real because somebody was telling her they weren't. 8 months ago, I identified as the girl who was extremely fragile and broken and whose ego was controlling things. 8 months ago, I identified as the girl who was doing okay, figuring it out, getting ready to have the happily ever after. And now I'm the girl who is living happy ever after, you know, and realizing that I have all of the goodness and by the grace of God.
Yeah, our attachments to things in this physical reality, whether they are possessions or people or even energy, you know, it's that unconditional love that you were getting from your aunt, that vibration is something that you feel attached to. And we lose those things. We're meant to lose them. We don't take them with us, right? As you said. And I think that it's crucial as we continue this evolution of self collectively to keep reframing what it means to lose things, which is why I say, you know, if you're somebody in your life out there, whoever's listening, who has lost a lot of things or people or whatever in your world, thank you, because we're meant to have a different understanding of what this illusion really is all about. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I'm just reflecting on what you said. And it's while you're living, don't forget to actually live. Yeah. Because I think that the ego and the fear and the constructions of things that exist around us provide such a dense energy and make it so hard to live. And there's so much going on in this world that makes people not want to. And I know it is incredibly hard to transmute all of that. Incredibly hard. But as you move to, you are so worth living and you are so worth moving and being the brightest that you can be, regardless of what's happening around you, the earth just gets more of an infusion of that. Exactly what it needs.
Yeah, exactly. So that we can all get there as a species, God willing, one day. You are fucking miracle in my life and in the lives of everybody who knows you. Tell people as we wrap things up how they can support you in your business and where they can find you on the interwebs and beyond.
Yes. So the interwebs, let's start with the websites. They can find me at quartzandcanary.com. Quartz like the stone and canary like the bird. That's where you can find all of the jewelry. You're also welcome to email or DM. All of the information is there if you want a custom piece. It's would be my complete honor to be able to support that for you. You can also find my personal information at at www.theandreadipaolo.com. The "the" is in front of everything that I do because an Italian pianist has all of the domains, and I don't really have a choice. My name is very popular in Italy. So theandreadipaolo.com. You can find me on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, super simple, at the Andrea DiPaolo, and Quartz and Canary on all three as well, at Quartz and Canary. You can certainly jump in on any of the retreats, one-on-one coaching. The future of where I'm taking even the business and the coaching is I've created the simple program. It's a breakdown of the word simple and 6 simple steps that you can take, a workbook that you can use. It's really foundational. You can be a rookie, you can be a Jedi coming in and saying, hey, you know what, I just need to take something with me that helps me transmute and compute what the hell is going on in this lifetime. And, the future of my business is making sure that as I continue to live authentically and teach something that I've created, others will hopefully want to spread that same message and run retreats and be simple coaches and continue spreading that message. So if you ever want to take a jump and a leap into helping others through your own self-development, please let us know, because I'd be more than happy to be of service to all of you. Into supporting yourself through getting to the other side of helping others, then I would be 100% open to being of service to you.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, you do have a very simple view of things. Not easy, but simple. It's very simple. It's simple to choose these things. It's simple to choose yourself. It's hard, but it's simple. It's very basic. So I love that. I love that little acronym. I can't wait to learn all but more about it and just dive into what that's all about. I am so grateful for you. I'm grateful for our friendship, really and truly. And I'm grateful for you taking this time, and grateful for all of our listeners. Thank you all so much for tuning into another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with another episode. Have a great day and take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. You can follow along with us on Instagram at I'm Really Into That Stuff, or on Twitter at That Stuff Pod. And be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. If this episode resonated with you and something that you're really into, share it with someone you love. Sending you strength, peace, love, and light until our next episode.